Hey there, welcome to Real Talk Baseball. Thank you for tuning to our off-season series where we will be breaking down all 30 MLB teams, talking about off-season rumors, free agent signings, trade predictions, and projected lineups for 2025. I'm your host, Ernie Orange, and here's our baseball analyst from Real Talk Baseball, Will Power. How you doing out there, Will?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Ern Dog?
I'm doing great, man. Ready to talk some Diamondbacks today. There's a team that had a great season last year, finished 89 and 73, somehow missed the playoffs. How? Well, we'll be breaking down the 2024 overview, right? And what do you thought about this Diamondback team from last season?
I thought they were fine. It's a team that was coming off of the World Series in 2023, and they just got outshined by the Dodgers and the Padres, man. And with this new system, the wild card system, they really had a shot to get one of those wild card spots. But when you have a team like the Padres that was clipping on the heels of the Dodgers basically all season, actually they were even leading the Dodgers in the beginning in the first half, and everyone thought that the Padres were going to take the division, which we haven't seen anyone take the division from the Dodgers in a long time. It was just that one season from the Giants where they had like 106 wins, only one win more than the Dodgers that season. But you can't take anything away from the Diamondbacks, man. But they got some free agents that they're losing this year, so it looks like 2025 they got a lot of work to do, man.
They sure do, man. This Diamondbacks team was doing so well offensively. They ranked top 10 in every offensive category. They hit bombs, they hit the hits, the doubles, triples, you name it. They had it all. It's just they lost some crucial games down the stretch that they really needed to win to secure that wild card spot, man. You're
Yeah,
talking about the final game of the season. They're sitting back at home watching the Braves and Mets split
man.
one and just miss the playoffs entirely that way. It wasn't fun for them. Now, like you said, they're missing some crucial free agents this year, this offseason, and they have a lot of work to do, right? Torey Lovullo has done a great job, but they need to figure out what's going to be the best thing going forward because Christian Walker does not look like he's coming back. Do you
No.
see Christian Walker coming back to the Diamondback team?
They already said that they're not really willing to pay that much money, for a first baseman coming off of a 2024 season where maybe they make the playoffs in 2025 and maybe they don't. If it was a little bit different where they knew like, this is our year, we need that one piece, then maybe they would go after like a big contract like that, because Christian Walker, he's probably looking for a multi-year deal for a lot of money. He only played like a little more than half the season, and he did really good last season, even not playing 162 games, still hit a lot of home runs, still batted for a decent average. I just wanted to add to your Diamondback stats about last year. They actually led the league in runs scored. So how do you miss the playoffs when you lead the league in runs scored? I'll tell you, it's because they let too many runs score on the other side as well, man. And that's been a big problem. It's been a struggle limiting the amount of runs from the starting pitching, from the bullpen. And, you have Zach Gallen as their ace leading the way, but even he underperformed last season. And dude, I was high on Zach Gallen in the beginning of 2024. I had him in a couple fantasy drafts, and I thought he was going to be like my ace. I waited a couple rounds and got him in at the end of round 2, I believe, round 3 turn. And I thought he was going to carry my pitching staff, but he was just kind of mid, man. I would think everyone was just expecting a little bit more from him. And, Eduardo Rodriguez, part of the Diamondbacks rotation last year, but he didn't even show up until midseason. And then he was just kind of like trash, like not really worth much. And Brandon Pfaadt actually took a step forward. I really like Brandon Pfaadt, man. And that's another guy that I'm going to be targeting in fantasy drafts for next season. And I don't know, the lineup looks really good, other than that, other than losing Christian Walker. But who's going to play first base? I think that's like the biggest question mark, when it comes to the Diamondbacks. And I've actually heard some rumors that possibly Jake McCarthy or who's the other outfielder?
Lourdes Gurriel. I think he can play
No,
first
not
base.
Lourdes Gurriel.
Pavin Smith.
Oh,
Well, you're right.
Alec Thomas. So it was either Jake McCarthy or Alec Thomas might be moved in this offseason as they're looking for a first baseman. And news just broke about 15-20 minutes ago that Nolan Arenado says that he's willing to move to first base if there's a team out there that's willing to trade for him. So it opens up a lot of possibilities because there's a lot of teams out there that are missing a first baseman.
Yeah, you bring up a great point. I think Christian Walker's not coming back to the Diamondbacks. I think he's looking for his big paycheck, and a big market like the Yankees or the Mets are really interested in him, and they really need the help at first base, and they have the money to pay. So I think that's out the window now. Christian Walker will not come back. I think you bringing Nolan Arenado, it's a great point because the Diamondbacks have big depth in their outfield. They have 4 guys they could play in the outfield. They can mix and match. Now, you may have to trade one of them. You have Alec Mack, and then McCarthy. Great options to trade for Nolan Arenado. That would be perfect. And you go ahead and get that guy right there, man, because he brings an experience to the NL West.
Yeah, for sure. And like he's already been in the West, and we know he's a good hitter. I don't know why any team would really even think about moving him from the hot corner over to first base, though. I know, like, yes, he's willing to, but dude, he's like second in the league in defensive runs saved. He's a really solid third baseman defensively. I think right behind Manny Machado. So, oh man, I wouldn't if I'm a manager, I'm not moving him to first base. I'm looking at my other third base options and possibly moving them to first base and trying to get Arenado to man at the hot corner.
Okay, well, let's talk about third base. Eugenio Suarez, who is a potential free agent this year. It's a team option. He hit 30 home runs, 106 RBIs. He did it really quietly, unexpectedly. Nobody expected that season from him in age 32, but hey, he continues to have this pop on his bat. So the Diamondbacks go ahead and move him instead and go pursue Arenado instead.
That's a big possibility because, Eugenio Suarez has been really good in the past, like years ago, but the past few years he's been very mid, a lot of strikeouts, barely breaking a 200 batting average, and he has some pop. He hits a lot of home runs, but he's not a defensive standout. He's not really like a batting average standout by any means. So I really think that the value of Eugenio Suarez is probably at its highest right now. There was even talks about the Diamondbacks DFAing him midway through the season because, the first half he was struggling, and it wasn't really until like July that he really like started to take off. So it was good that they kept him, because now that his value is so high, it definitely brings up some trade potential.
Yeah, definitely, man. You're talking about a team that Eugenio Suarez brings a lot to the table offensively. Like you said, defensively, there's a lot of question marks there. But with Ketel Marte, let's bring up this guy, man. He's finished third place in the MVP, had a solid season, hitting 36 bombs, and he looked like he's the real deal. Now, this Diamondback team has a young core of players who has not been played a lot. So the question is, do you bring a big free agent signing, or do you just continue growing your young prospects that you already have?
I don't think that they should really spend too much money on the offensive side. Like I mentioned before, they had the most runs scored in the league, National League, American League, whatever. They scored the most runs out of every other team. So adding a big bat, I don't really think that makes much sense. You definitely have to replace Christian Walker. And I think Pavin Smith would actually be a decent option to play first base as an everyday first baseman for the Diamondbacks. He played let's see, he played first base, left field, and right field, and he was manning first base when Christian Walker was hurt last season. So I think he could be a decent sleeper if the Diamondbacks trust him to be the everyday first baseman. Pavin Smith's metrics don't they look good, but they're not great. But okay. I think that if he can get 600 plate appearances, I project that he'll probably hit like 270 with 20 to 25 home runs. He has really good plate discipline. He doesn't chase a lot, so his OBP will be up there also. He's a solid defender at first base. So even though the Diamondbacks are losing Christian Walker, I don't think that the biggest need is really going to be first base. I don't think they're worrying about that too much. But they do have Alec Thomas and Jake McCarthy, like I was talking about, that that they
And
could
they're
try to
cheap.
move and potentially get a first baseman, or I think pitching is the biggest need right now, man. I think that they really need to go after one of these starting pitchers that is hitting free agency. Maybe like the Diamondbacks have actually been notorious for signing guys that are previously coming off of like either down seasons or coming off of injury. So Shane Bieber, does that kind of like make sense? I think that actually makes sense a lot for a Diamondbacks team, even if it's on a 1-year deal, man. I think Shane Bieber coming off of injury, I think that he's going to have that 1-year deal with the team that it's kind of be like a prove it year, because he's been kind of declining also the last couple seasons, even before he got hurt. So maybe the injury has something to do with that. Maybe it doesn't. But for the Guardians, he was the ace for a couple years, and the last like 2023 and 2022, he really just didn't really show up like he did in his former Cy Young season, which I believe was in 2020 when he won the
Right.
Cy Young. So I
There's
mean, the potential's there. He could be really solid again, but it's also like I said, it's got to be a prove it year for Shane Bieber. But I think it's a perfect fit if the Diamondbacks are willing to spend a little bit.
That is true, man. The Diamondback team already has 4 set starters. You're talking about they have Zach Gallen, Eduardo Rodriguez, who didn't come back to August, got paid a 4-year, $80 million deal last season. You got Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, Bryn Nelson, and they have a lot of options. But you are right. They could bring a 1-year type deal, kind of prove it guy. But another part where they definitely need to look at is the bullpen. And I think this is where it was huge letdown from them last season. That's where they blew a lot of games towards the end of the season. You have a young Justin Martinez who has a flamethrower, throws really fast fastballs out there. You have there's guys that you need to improve because AJ Puck and Paul Sewell is hitting free agency, and I'm not sure if they're really the answer. I think there's better arms out there in the free agency right now. You got guys like Blake Trinan, Brett Honeywell. There's guys you can steal from the Dodgers, and you got to do that to compete in this NL West and to overtake this Dodger and Padre team that are ahead of you right now.
Yeah, and don't forget Jordan Montgomery also, that big signing that the Diamondbacks did. He got moved to the bullpen towards the end of the year, and Ryan Nelson ended up taking that rotation spot away from Jordan Montgomery. But that does give them some options. Maybe putting Jordan Montgomery back in the rotation, or leaving him in the bullpen and having Ryan Nelson be the 5th man of the rotation, or putting them both in the bullpen and going after one of these free agent starting pitchers like Shane Bieber.
Do you see Jordan Montgomery coming back? I know he has a player option, and
definitely.
If he agrees, I think the D-backs are trading him. I don't see the GM wanting to keep him any longer.
I think so. And I think that a potential landing spot for him would be Texas, because he had success with Texas when they won the World Series. And I think there's just like a common interest right there. But even if the Diamondbacks do decide to keep him, it's a big contract, man. So whatever team that they try to trade him to is going to be taking on a lot of money, and I don't think that the Diamondbacks would really be willing to pay part of that contract, especially when Jordan Montgomery is kind of like somewhat proven in the past couple years, just not last year. His ERA was like above 6, and which is why they moved into the bullpen. But they believed him in the beginning of the season, so I don't know. I think maybe other than the injury concerns for Jordan Montgomery, I think he could probably turn things around. He's definitely not a 6 ERA guy. I see him more as like a mid-3s or a high 3s ERA, which is fine. Arenado is a high 3s ERA guy, and everyone sees Arenado as an elite pitcher, So Jordan Montgomery, I think that there's a lot of potential there, and I think that maybe they could do like a package where they send like Jordan Montgomery and one of those outfielders we were talking about and get something in return for that. I don't think they're really in rebuild mode right now because, like you mentioned, Ketel Marte earlier. I love Ketel Marte, man. I think he's such a good ball player. He just has trouble staying healthy, and he's getting older. He's getting closer to 30. He might even actually be 30 now. I'm not sure his actual age, but they don't really have like a lot of really young guys. They have Corbin Carroll, that's their core right there, and that's the guy you kind of gonna like build around. But they also have Lourdes Gurriel, who's shown that he can hack it on a daily basis, and a couple other guys around the diamond that have been really good. Gabriel Moreno is another young guy, one of the best catchers in the league so far in the past few seasons. He was hurt last season, so you didn't really see a lot from him either. But I think that there's a lot of potential, and it may take another year or two for the Diamondbacks really to like reach that potential. But I think that they need to do one big signing, and it needs to be for one of these aces that's going into free agency.
All right, awesome, man. That looks great. Any prospects you think the Diamondbacks should be calling up this year, maybe to potentially add some depth to their roster?
I didn't really look into too many prospects. I feel like they don't really need it right now. I think that they're pretty solid. There might be some pitching prospects that are coming up, but no one really like noteworthy that I can think of the top of my head.
I got a couple, and I think one of them that has to come up is Jordan Lawler. He's a bright shortstop out there that I think could have some extra depth for Geraldo Perdomo, and just in case he deals with any type of injuries or anything for Marte. I think that's where you have to bring him up this season and see if he's the real deal.
The thing with Jordan Lawler, though, is he's more of like a defensive standout, and he doesn't really have a lot of power. If anything, he would be like a little like batting average standout. But I actually have him in a dynasty league that I play in, a dynasty fantasy league, and I've been actually looking to trade him because it's a categories league, and in categories you're searching for home runs or stolen bases, and Jordan Lawler doesn't really do either one of those. He's probably like a 25 homer guy, which is fine, but it's not great. So I'm looking to flip that guy, and who knows, maybe the Diamondbacks would be looking to flip him also. I don't know. His defense is so good that he's a much better baseball player than a fantasy baseball player.
I see. Yeah, definitely. It's a guy that needs to prove it this season. I think it's his year to finally be in the majors. And if he shows he's a real deal, he will be staying with the Diamondbacks. And if not, they're going to ship him out of Arizona.
What would actually be nice is maybe Eugenio Suarez could make the move to first base. We see that a lot, switching between third and first, and possibly having Jordan Lawler play third base. Shortstop is a lot harder to play than almost any other position on the field. And I think it's an easier transition to go from shortstop to third than it would be from third to short. So I wouldn't put it past him that he could play third base. He's probably done it in the past. Most shortstops are like the best athlete on the team, and a lot of them can kind of move around the infield a lot. So, I definitely wouldn't trying him at third base in the minors, and maybe seeing some potential there.
There's definitely a lot of prospects out there for the Diamondbacks. They have another one, a young kid named Drew Jones, son of legendary Andrew Jones from the Braves. And he seems like he's a five-tool player, has a lot of potential in the outfield. I think he's a little early, though. I think if there's any injuries into the season in 2025, I could see Drew Jones making a call-up later in September and making an impact for this.
He's an outfielder, right?
Team. He's an outfielder, yeah. Looks just like his dad, even better sometimes when he's fielding out there. So I think it's probably too soon right now for him, but I think it's a good name to throw out there that you could potentially see this season. Now let's head into
what I remember about Drew Jones is he's a power guy, right? He hits home runs.
That is true.
That could be like another one that they could really like start looking into, especially if they do move those two outfielders like we were talking about, Alek Thomas and Jake McCarthy. Either one of those two guys, like Alek Thomas was like somewhat of a top prospect in the Diamondbacks organization, and if they have this other outfielder coming up that's even a bigger prospect than Alek Thomas was. Alek and Alex, man, it's too
sounds similar.
Yeah, but moving those two guys and trading for some bullpen pieces possibly, or a first baseman possibly, it kind of opens up a door for these prospects to make a move to the MLB.
Sounds good, man. Well, last topic of the day. What are your 2025 predictions for this Diamondbacks team going forward next season?
I think it's still going to be really hard to pass the Dodgers and the Padres. I think if anything, the Diamondbacks are going to have to go after that second wild card spot, because the Padres were looking really good, man. They were looking like the best team in baseball until the Dodgers, just put the final nail in the coffin in Game 5 of the National League Division Series. And I think the potential definitely is there. They could definitely solidify a playoff spot, but they need to learn how to limit the runs, man. I think Zach Gallen is the guy. I think he needs to lead the way, unless they go after one of these other aces. But even if they do go after one of these aces, I think it's going to be like a little friendly rivalry between, like, let's say, like Zach Gallen and like Shane Bieber that I mentioned before. Like those two guys, they're both veterans now. I think Zach Gallen's actually going to hit free agency either after 2025 or possibly the year after. So both of those guys have a lot of experience. They have some playoff experience, like we talked about the Diamondbacks being in the World Series in 2023 versus the Rangers. But the Diamondbacks are a small market team, and they don't really like to spend too much money. They spent a little bit too much money on Jordan Montgomery, so I feel like they're probably going to have their hands in their pockets, when it comes to shelling out some money, unless they can move Jordan Montgomery before a lot of these other free agents get signed.
Yeah, definitely true, man. I don't see the Diamondbacks making any big splashes like that. Maybe some small 1-2 year deals, but they already paid Corbin Carroll and Ketel Marte. Those are their two core guys going forward. And I think they're going to fall either wild card spot or they're not making the playoffs again, because if they're not going to spend, it's not happening. Unfortunately, there's a lot of teams making big splashes this offseason, and it's going to be really competitive to get a spot in the playoffs in the National League. So, hey, well, thank you guys. If you guys like our content, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. We'll be talking all 30 MLB teams the remaining weeks of the off season. And make sure to follow us on all our social platforms. Hit that barcode out there in the right top corner. And this is Ernie Orange, Willpower. We are signing out. Thank you guys. See you guys next time.
And happy Thanksgiving.